we're finally going to see those indicative votes. So how significant is this latest development?
Right, so Theresa May spent 2 years negotiating a Brexit deal. She brought it back. Nobody liked it very much. It's been rejected by an overwhelming majority twice in Parliament. And only now, with 4 days to go until what was meant to be Brexit Day, Parliament has decided that enough is enough, and they are going to have a go at finding an alternative to her Brexit deal. So what does this mean? They're almost certainly within Parliament, if there is a majority for anything, which is not clear, that majority will be for a softer Brexit, so for maintaining closer economic ties with the bloc. And that's why the pound rallied after the vote result. The only caveat, of course, to all this is that Parliament so far has not managed to come up with a majority for any kind of Brexit. And so it is still possible that we end the week in as much of an impasse as we are at the moment. Now, the government has come out in response to this and said that Parliament should bear in mind that what they come up with must be negotiable. So it must be something the EU will be willing to accept. And also, Theresa May has warned MPs that if they choose something very different to her deal, then they must bear in mind that they will probably end up keeping the UK trapped in the EU for an extended period. That's because there's simply not time to rewrite the Brexit deal before the new deadline, which is April the 12th. So what we can expect now is that Theresa May will probably, depending on what Parliament comes up with, if indeed a consensus is found in Parliament, Theresa May will have to go back to Brussels, ask for a longer extension, perhaps of many months, 9 or 12 months is what we hear from Brussels, as a new kind of Brexit plan is hashed out. Of course, the option of no-deal Brexit is still on the table. That's because that remains the legal default, and so we still have some rollercoaster days ahead of us.
Yeah, and we know that the European Commission is looking like an increasingly likely scenario of that no-deal Brexit. But as you say, Emma, it's not as though members of Parliament have left many stones unturned up to now, right? Is the idea of a second referendum gaining a bit more momentum?
So there's probably not a majority in Parliament at the moment for a second referendum. An idea that is gaining a wee bit of momentum, perhaps, is the idea that Jeremy Corbyn has just mentioned, which is a confirmatory referendum. So not a repeat of the 2016 referendum, but a referendum on, do you like this deal, Theresa May's deal, or would you prefer to remain? That's something that, is one to watch for at least. The options that are most likely to be debated by Parliament are a softer Brexit, so what we call the Norway Plus option, which is basically keeping EU membership in all but name, really, single market access, but no vote or veto in the EU process. A customs union, which is basically staying within the main trading rules of the bloc, or, as you say, a second referendum. One thing to watch out for is the prospect of a general election. Now, May was making hints in Parliament today that she stood for election on a manifesto that ruled out staying in the customs union, that wanted to pursue an independent trade policy, and certainly her Brexit secretary over the weekend raised the idea that if Parliament forces the government to pursue the type of Brexit that it ruled out in its manifesto, then perhaps the next step would be a general election. So definitely not ruling out a general election later this year.
So we have now seen 3 ministers just today leaving the Prime Minister's government. What happens to her?
Well, that's always been the question, hasn't it? I mean, no one dares predict Theresa May's demise, because for so long now we have been saying that she's on her the end might be near. The ministers quit in order to vote against her, to vote for these indicative votes in Parliament. They are pro-EU ministers who want to see a sort of softer exit, if you like. Certainly over the weekend, the speculation that she would be ousted reached fever pitch, but it was a coup that was very short-lived, because 2 of the people who were sort of touted as her successor quickly came out and said that they weren't particularly interested in the job. Can Theresa May survive? It's hard to tell, but it depends very much how she responds to what Parliament comes up with.